Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started here. This is Marcelo with Phasing Group Benefits, and just a little bit about us. We are your full spectrum broker, providing everything from benefits, wellness, HR solutions to compliance and payroll. Today, we're going to be going over 10 key considerations for reference-based pricing. We have Dan Harrison here with us from GPA, and he's an expert in that field. Just a couple important reminders as we get started here. Everyone will be muted. If you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box. We'll be answering all questions at the end. We're also going to send out a follow-up email to everyone with a little bit of information as to what was discussed here today. Dan, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Okay, great, Marcelo. Thanks so much for getting the topic out today and scheduling the webinars. Excuse me, folks, for those of you on the phone, you'll have to forgive my voice. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and there is probably a layer of pollen on every single piece of my house. So if you hear me clear in my throat, I apologize, but I will try to keep it to a minimum. And for everyone on the phone, thanks again for your interest in this topic. I'm going to be very frank with you. Initially, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, about GPA, and then I'm going to go into the 10 key considerations. We have about an hour. We're going to leave time to answer questions at the end of this presentation. So we're going to try and keep it kind of on point with regards to 30 to 45 minutes, maybe just on content. And then another 15 to 20 minutes, depending on where we're at, to answer questions. This is not going to be a sales commercial. This is more about education in this particular space because it is growing tremendously. I can tell you right now, I've been in this business for 15 years, employee benefits, and this is probably one of the most exciting times I've ever experienced in this business. But look, I'm a regular guy. I have 2 cats, 2 dogs, 3 children. I am very busy, and I do this because I do what I do because I believe in it. And there's a lot of people out there that believe in it, and they have a new car on the lot that's nice and new and bright and shiny. So what I bring to you today is ways to vet out the different vendors in the marketplace, and quite frankly, there's a select few that do this really well. And then there's some that are, they're very cheap, and you honestly get what you pay for in this business. So if you go the cheap route, you pay a cheap fee, you will get a cheap result. If you pay a moderately higher fee with more protections against balance billing and more management for the member and the plan itself, medically or financially, you will pay a little bit more, and it is absolutely worth it. So GPA as an organization is a 50-year-old company. We have been in this space for going on 12 years now. We have a lot of great partners and vendors that support our members. And the membership base is about 500,000 in terms of just individual belly buttons that we manage. We only work with self-funded plans, and the flexibility in a self-funded plan is tremendous. I think we all know that 10 years ago or however many years ago when the Affordable Care Act came out, that it's going to just change everything, and it did. Quite frankly, what it did do is make hospitals richer, more rich. They're just recording record revenues, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, it doesn't really matter. And then you've got your insurance companies that have stock prices that are through the roof over the past 5 to 10 years, and they're making money hand over fist and charging you more money every year. Not to mention premiums, not to forget your premiums go up, and then your out-of-pockets go up, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started at a basic level just on what reference-based pricing is. This is reference-based pricing goes by a couple of different names. We founded this concept 12 years ago, and we termed it metric-based pricing. It also goes by reference-based pricing and value-based pricing. Cost plus is a term that's out there as well. So in essence, what this means is this is 3 hospitals. I got this information is on 3 Atlanta hospitals in Atlanta, Georgia, 3 fairly big systems. And this info is derived from the American Hospital Directory. It's called ahd.com. You can go there and look it up. If you want more in-depth information on cost-to-charge ratios, et cetera, you got to get a membership. If you want that kind of info, feel free to reach out to your phasing group contact, and we'll help you out as best we can. So when we're looking at this slide, what I'm going to really concentrate on is the bottom 2 sections, the averages. So these numbers represent a CT scan level 1. It's a very common procedure at a hospital or an imaging facility, so this is why I'm using it. Now, for one CT scan, the average bill charge is $3,366 here on the bottom left across these hospital systems. Their reported cost to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service is an average of $111 moving from left to right. They will be reimbursed an average of $184 by Medicare for a level 1 CT scan. That percentage above the actual cost of $111 is 3,042%. Okay, when you talk to a business owner or a CFO or even a human resources administrator or colleague, this is jaw-dropping information. Now, let's say we reprice that claim. And it's being audited, and we find that there's a couple things like duplicate claim lines, diagnosis codes that shouldn't be there. That can happen, but at its very basic level, a CT scan across all these hospitals only costs $111. If you add 50% to that particular claim, to that cost, you could reimburse that hospital on average $276. Okay, and again, it is not hard to peg a claim to Medicare. It is being done all day, every day by individual businesses, by third-party administrators. So that is a very easy thing to do. The reality is, while you can drive significant savings, in this example, after a modest 60% discount on a PPO allowed charge of $3,366, the savings on just one CT scan results in $1,125.87, which is basically the difference between the $1,346 and the $276. That's, again, just one CT scan. So moving on, kind of before I start really diving into this, I just want to give you a quick heads up. There's 10 items we're going to talk about. I'm going to speed through these because we could spend hours going through every single one of these items. And while it seems like it's a daunting task to take all of these items into consideration, that's why you have people like the phasing group to help walk you through that process. So take advantage of that as you can when you go down this road. So we know that we can peg a claim to a percentage above Medicare all day, every day. The real magic happens when you take into account the relationship between the TPA, a repricing vendor, and your client, the business. Because if we're driving a tremendous amount of savings, we don't want to do that at the expense of the members' experience, their interaction with the hospital systems, their providers. We want to make it a good experience. So effectively, you really want to vet out your TPA and your partners that are going to be partnering with you as a client to make this a reality. So first and second points. First point is there's a lot of different models out there. There's hybrids of the top two: pay and defend, negotiate, and settle. Pay and defend is one of the oldest models out there. It's very, very effective. It's been vetted in the marketplace, and frankly, it's probably got a lower balance bill rate than the other two models here, because it's more recognized. Now, there's a negotiate and settle model, which is a pretty slick way of managing claims to negotiate up to 200% or 180% above Medicare. Hospitals accept it all day, but again, balance billing is still an issue, and if you don't get a hospital to settle on a particular percentage above Medicare, that could get very, very loopy on you, to kind of put it bluntly. In that sense, if you settle at 150 above Medicare, 50% above costs, or 50% above Medicare, that hospital system will ask you to settle at 180% above Medicare. It's like feeding the cat. They keep coming back for more, and they will keep doing that all day long. So those models are a little bit harder to manage, but they are, again, very effective. And then you've got hybrid models that we'll talk about a little bit later when we look at different fee structures. Fiduciary positions and ERISA obligations within a plan. I'm not going to bore you with all the language for ERISA, but what I will say is having a fiduciary position on a plan document is very important from a defense standpoint and a negotiation standpoint, because at that level of protection, the TPA and the pricing vendor have a legal obligation to defend the payment, protect the plan, and protect the member. I'm not going to go into this at a great level of detail, but this is something you really need to look into. If someone says that they have a co-fiduciary or fiduciary position on a plan, ask them if they are a named fiduciary in the plan document. If they are not, that status, you need to politely ask them to leave the room. I'm not kidding. All right, so next topics, check your references, ask the references if the savings are real, and how long do they stick, or do they stick beyond 12 months? And how is the member experience? These are two extremely important factors, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the fact that if you're driving savings, which are very real, you need to make sure that your members are taken care of from a health standpoint and from a financial standpoint. Ask the vendors that you're looking at how many reference-based pricing, metric-based pricing clients they have. And to go even a step further, ask those vendors if they are in fact using a reference-based pricing plan with their internal employees. We do this at GPA. I know a lot of other vendors do it as well, but that's a very important facet, because if they're not eating it, breathing it, and sleeping it every day, it could go very sideways, to say it again kind of bluntly. How long have they administered the plans? 5 years is a good barometer. And the reason I say that is the markets, in terms of the hospitals and the providers, will recognize the TPA and or the repricing vendor, and they will accept the payment all day, every day. As far as website and copyright, there's a lot of new shiny cars out there in the marketplace. I would just be very careful on how you approach it, because the shiny new car is great, but you just don't know what kind of maintenance you're going to have a year now, 2 years from now, with regard to that particular model or provider or car in this example. If there is not a mission statement on their website that addresses the consumer or the member in the plan, again, politely ask them to leave. It is extremely important that the providers, the brokers, the members, and the business owners have access to information inside of their plan, meaning claims, utilization, drug spend, et cetera, et cetera. So TPAs are kind of like the quarterback of this operation. If you have too much tech integration, that can become a confusing system for a member, meaning you're confusing a system that's already kind of confusing. and we just don't want to do that. So limited tech, for example, you have a medical, if you go to a TPA and they have a disease management firm that they outsource, that can become a little convoluted for the member. Another example may be perhaps there's a specialty PBM in a basic PBM that just does generic meds or whatever. It just can be a little convoluted. So you don't want to outsource a lot of these services. Telemedicine is a great service. It has a huge amount of utilization. It saves the plan a lot of money. It protects a member against balance billing. I mean, telemedicine is a great avenue to go down. But you don't want to have, the TPA shouldn't have multiple vendors as telemedicine vendors. Because if you move from one vendor to another every year, I mean, it just becomes confusing. Number 7, number 8, this is addressing really the hospital system. In terms of admission confrontations at a hospital, every market is different. However, at the end of the day, we as the members are all accessing the same or similar services with relatively the same outcomes, meaning 99% of the time, your services, the surgery, therapy, labs, imaging, it has the same outcome in most cases. Therefore, you have a free market to look at in this model. You do not have to be limited to only the hospital that's right next to your house. You can go to a better hospital and get better service and have no balance billing issues whatsoever. This is a function of a pre-service or a pre-claim event, meaning does the member have the ability to call a nurse concierge service to arrange and find services arrange and find providers that will happily take them in as a patient and not balance bill them. That is a reality, and it needs to be looked at on a pre and a post-service basis. So does the TPA have information that you can use or that the member can use and that they can provide to guide the member through through their experience with the health system, no matter where you're at? Number 8, not going to get into a whole lot about this. Direct contracts, single patient contracts, they're kind of rare in a sense, but when the subject comes up, you need to ask a couple of questions. How many do you have in place, Mr. TPA? Do you have any narrow and accepted network access in different parts of the country? How successful are you at negotiating and placing direct and single patient contracts? Meaning, how many times have they failed to do that? And if they did, what happens to the member? That is very important. All right, next 2, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. Member advocacy and education is crucial for success. On the medical management side of things, we're talking about disease management, case management, lifestyle coaching. Again, this is where the rubber meets the road. Okay. From a medical management standpoint, we can drive savings all day, but if it's at the expense of the member's health and their experience, it's just not going to work. So look for URAC accredited organizations that have multiple disciplines, meaning are they accredited by URAC in oncology, diabetes, whatever it may be, blood disorders, etc. Make sure that they have an extensive library of resources and experience in the market. Are they going to conduct ongoing meetings and advocacy for the members, etc.? All right, so the big elephant in the room most of the time is balance billing. How is it handled? Can it be handled? Will it be handled in perpetuity? Is the member and the plan protection a reality? What I'm saying here is do you have a vendor that's going to protect the member and the plan in perpetuity if the member leaves the employer or if the employer leaves the TPA? So on the different models, we talked about the negotiate and settle, the hybrid models. You know, at the end of the day, the employer, since they're self-funded, makes the call. This is a great strategy, but you sacrifice a little bit of savings over time because the hospital will ask for more every single time you have to negotiate. But that's not a bad thing. I think it's very effective. I think I'm from a different batch of people in that if you're paying someone fairly above cost for medical services, you shouldn't have to negotiate. But sometimes you got to. It's just a reality. And can you minimize balance billing? Telemedicine is very effective at minimizing balance billing. If your TPA has partners that do diagnostic imaging, meaning they're pre-negotiated rates for CT scans, PET scans, MRIs at facilities across the nation, that is, again, another very effective way to minimize balance billing. Sending members to, I guess, favored hospitals or I can't remember the term right now, but safe harbor hospitals or hospital systems. Again, another very effective way to minimize balance billing. But you have to ask yourself, what is really the reality of balance billing? That occurs on both models. On traditional PPO models, I mean, you can look it up. There are news stories after news stories and court case after court case about surprise balance billing. And in fact, this is a map of states that have comprehensive or not so comprehensive protections for members and businesses. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on what is a comprehensive list of protections, but you can see there's not that many. It's only like 6 states with comprehensive protection. The gray, they just haven't come along yet. But there is, I guess, for lack of a better description, litigation in Congress to expose transparency. This past January 1st, our president asked or ordered that hospitals disclose their charge master rates and their retail rates for certain services. You know, that's all fine and good, but if we're looking at a rate up of 2,000 to 3,000% in some cases above Medicare and what the true cost is. So it's not really that helpful. But I think they're coming along in terms of the government having some level of understanding about this. Okay, so these next couple of slides, I'm not going to go into, again, a large level of detail. This is actually about the different models that we talked about earlier. I'll just suggest that if you want additional information, contact me directly to go through the details. Go to Marcelo and your folks at the phasing group to discuss the different aspects. Because we could go through this. This could take another hour on these next couple of slides. I think an important facet, though, is to talk about stop-loss concerns as well as different fee structures. So when it comes to stop-loss and being self-funded, there's a couple of different ways that you need to vet out the TPA because they will, in most cases, go to a stop-loss market. It could be, at GPA, we go to about 15 different carriers that are approved for us to be a partner with us, specifically for different reasons. One is they will extend their contract by an additional 12 months in the event legal fees and balance billing occurs on a claim that comes after the end date of the contract. They understand that legal fees must be covered as well in the spec and the aggregate coverage. Will they reimburse against the policy for legal fees? These are big questions. And if they cannot be adequately answered, um, you need to ask that person to politely leave the room. So let's go into fee structures real quick. These are three basic fee structures: PEPM, percent of savings, and a percent of bill charges. Positive and negatives. A PEPM is very predictable from a cost standpoint. It can drive a lot of savings. It's cheap and it's inexpensive. But there could be months where a single claim doesn't get audited from a hospital, or even from a physician for that matter. And all that time you're paying a PEPM fee, no matter what. Every claim is different. Every claim needs to be looked at, in my opinion. I would concentrate on the big stuff, though, the large claims that come from hospital systems. These models generally do not have very strong legal support. There's very little fiduciary responsibility there as well. But again, it's in this business, you absolutely get what you pay for. Percent of savings, a very established form of reimbursement. Basically, you're being charged a percent of the savings that is being driven in that model. There is a little bit of noise around this from a conflict of interest standpoint, because the repricing firm, whether it's an integrated TPA or a vendor that's doing the repricing, could be looked at from the point of, well, Mr. Repricer, auditing firm, you are driving savings and also driving revenue for your company. So in essence, you are controlling how much you get paid. And that's a difficult thing to defend from a legal standing in court if a hospital is suing. And that's rare. But it happens. So at the end of the day, you need to make sure that your every party is aligned correctly. Percent of bill charges. This sounds pretty expensive, but I know from experience that the average bill charge that we look at is about $3,000. And a percentage of $3,000 is good when you have the legal standing to defend the payment of that claim. Pardon me. There's no conflicts of interest in this particular model from a defense standpoint. Now, on the other side of that, you may not have a single claim in any given month that can get audited. However, it could happen. And when it does happen, it could be very big or it could be very small in terms of that claim and what your fee would be. So again, the fee needs to be covered by your stop-loss carrier. Your stop-loss carrier needs to agree to that. That fee should include legal defense for the member and the plan in perpetuity. If it doesn't, that's your choice and you should pay a little bit less. So, just kind of wanted to make a few points on that. So Marcelo, I'm pretty much done except for 2 more slides, and then we can go to questions. In order to make reference-based pricing a success, this is a conversation that you need to have with the CFO all the way to the HR contacts, and then with the employees. Make sure that there's a legitimate communication strategy to roll it out. Give it some time. Make sure you're doing it carefully. And I say this all the time. You got to be brave and bold when you go into this kind of model, because it is different, and you have to help people, and you have to manage it correctly. Share your savings throughout the year or at the renewal with your employees. They will be grateful and thankful that they went to this particular model. Use a firm that's able to assume a co-fiduciary status. I'm a pretty conservative guy. I just think that if you pay more, you're going to get better service. Will they serve and protect the plan and the member? highly important. And I'm sorry I'm driving this home so much, folks, but if you're going to go down this road, um, partner with groups that are brave and bold and are fearless when it comes to supporting the plan and the members. Okay, so is reference-based pricing a reality in the marketplace now? According to the Department of Labor, 61% of all employers self-fund their plan. 85% of our clients promote and manage a reference-based pricing plan. We are on it ourselves. I used it this morning when I went to the doctor, and it went beautifully. It was perfect. Our nurse concierge service arranged the appointment, sent them the benefit plan, and got my copay confirmed. If you look at the, I guess, the noise in the news from the state and federal governments, they are looking at surprise billing tactics. So we know for a fact that reference-based pricing is a reality. It's not so much that it's because of balanced billing. I mean, balanced billing has not been a product of reference-based pricing. I mean, GPA did not create that phenomenon. It's just a tactic that's used by hospital systems and physicians, for that matter, to get more money. And I get it, they got to get paid. But there's a certain level to which you should get paid, like, i.e., how much above your actual cost. The vendor marketplace is growing rapidly. I could count on both hands how many new ones I've found in the past 4 months. And they've all got shiny new cars to show you, but you got to ask the right questions. Hopefully this has been productive for everyone. I'm happy to give you more stats and data at any point in time. Please feel free to reach out to me or contact Marcelo and your team at the Facing Group for more information. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dan. So now if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and type those into the chat box. We did have a few questions come in. So Dan,
okay.
What is the rate of balance billing on your program?
So we have to look at this from a pie standpoint. So if you draw a circle, you cut it in half. Basically what you're looking at is, let's say, physician and pharmacy spend on one half, and then hospital spend on the other. And I'm just kind of making this a fairly simple explanation. Across the hospital-only claims, it's about 9 to 12% hospital-only claims. Now, a third of those go away once the legal representation and authorization is given by the member to be represented by our firm is authorized. A third of those, actually 2/3 of those, go away. So it kind of boils down to 2 to 3% maybe after legal representation is put in place. Okay.
And what level of support do you provide for the member experience?
So it's a hugely, we have a vast library. We send people on site every month if needed. We have people from our repricing vendor come out as well. We have videos. We have flyers that can be put up. We send mailers as well so the member is aware of what they need to do and what their resources are. If we see a claim, for example, that comes through from an endocrinologist that a person is taking insulin, we will reach out to that member and say, hey, look, do you need some guidance in this area? What are your concerns? Is there anything we can do for you? It's very comprehensive on our side. Everything is in-house with GPA. We don't outsource anything but telemedicine.
Okay, perfect. And lastly, if
Sure.
somebody wants to get a quote, how would they go about doing that?
So I'd say just contact you, Marcelo, or go to the Facing Group. It's pretty easy. We turn it around in about 7 to 10 days.
Perfect. All right. So I just want to remind everybody that you'll be receiving a follow-up email from us. It'll include this deck of slides as well as a recording. And I want to thank Dan for doing such a great job presenting today.
Thanks, Marcelo. My pleasure. Look forward to more.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.